Hey guys, we are finishing up the littles today, and I'm going to post the link the quiz number, not the link, for your AR test if you'd like to take one on here. And remember, I will give you a high five if you take a test on the littles. All right. So we have 2 chapters left today, so not even 3 like we've been reading. I'm going to try and show you the pictures. It's a little sunny outside today, so there we go. So there she is leaning up against number 10. Miss Little and Granny Little were still in the living room where the other littles hurried in. Lucy, said Miss Little, I thought you were in your room. What happened? Will, why is Lucy with you? Mr. Little told his wife what had happened. Lucky for us, Lucy decided to follow me when she did, he said. I still can't believe it. She attacked that huge cat. He shook his head. It's amazing, said Uncle Pete. Absolutely amazing. We were pinned under the logs, Mother said Tom. I never got a chance to shoot my bow and arrows. What are we going to do about that cat, said Uncle Pete. Never thought they'd get a cat to chase the mice. We're safe inside the walls at least, said Mr. Little. The monster won't be able to get us here. There's the problem of getting supplies, said Uncle Pete. We'll have to leave the walls for that. I think I know how we can get rid of the cat, said Mr. Little. How? Said all the littles. By getting it in trouble, said Mr. Little. We can pull down the curtains for one thing. The Newcombs will blame it on the cat. We can keep spilling its milk. At night we can make loud cat noises to keep the Newcombs awake. We can even knock over lamps so they will think the cat did it. Pretty soon the Newcombs will think they have the wrong kind of cat. They'll want to get rid of it. Everybody agreed that Mr. Little's plan was a good one. During the next few weeks, the Newcombs came to believe their cat was clumsy and noisy. One day, the cat seemed to knock over a lamp. Another time, the Newcombs were awake half the night listening to meowing. It was really the littles making a terrible racket. The day after that, the curtains in the dining room were pulled down. What do we do tomorrow, Dad? Said Tom. May I spill the cat's milk? That's good, yes, said Mr. Little. It should be done 2 or 3 times in a row, though. Then Miss Newcomb will get awfully tired of cleaning it up. There's only one thing wrong with this plan, Will, said Miss Little. I don't know why you say that, said Mr. Little. Everything has worked perfectly so far. What's wrong with this plan? The cat is still in the house, said Miss Little. Don't worry, said Mr. Little. It won't be here long. Miss Newcomb must be mad as a wet hen by now, said Uncle Pete. The next day, Tom had a close call. Just as he was lifting the cat's milk dish to spill it for the 3rd time, the cat showed up. The huge animal came bounding towards Tom. At the last moment, Tom upset the milk dish under the cat's nose. That stopped the cat long enough for Tom to get away. And there we go. We can see the picture. There's Tom running away. This plan of yours is too slow, Will, said Uncle Pete. We're going to have to do something else before the cat can get one of us. What can we do? Said Mr. Little. We need larger weapons, said Uncle Pete. I don't know if that's the answer, Uncle Pete, said Mr. Little. Besides, that takes time, too. You're right, though. This plan isn't working. I heard Miss Newcomb telling Mr. Newcomb not to get rid of the cat. She's afraid the mice will return. And she likes the cat, Mr. Little went on. Thinks it's cute. She says it's high-spirited. Not only that, said Miss Little, we can't break up everything in the house just to get rid of the cat. It is the Biggs' house, after all. Why don't we try taming the cat, said Tom. What? Said Uncle Pete. Let's see if we can tame it, repeated Tom. Cats have been friends to men since the early days of history. Uncle Pete looked from Miss Little to Mr. Little. Do you hear what the boy is saying? He said. He's gone soft in the head. No kidding, Dad, said Tom. It's true. The early Egyptians thought cats were gods. They had them all over the place. They did they? Said Uncle Pete. Where did you hear such nonsense? I read it in one of the Biggs history books, said Tom. Uncle Pete snorted. A cat has never been a friend to a little. I can tell you that. Maybe that's because none of them ever tried to tame a cat, said Tom. They were always afraid of the cats. What kind of silly talk is that, boy? Said Uncle Pete. Look at the size of the beast. We could tame such a monster. Men tame elephants, said Tom. Tom has an interesting idea, said Mr. Little. Perhaps we're worried too much about the size of the cat because we're so small. We've always thought all large animals were our enemies. Maybe that's wrong. I don't like the way this talk is going, said Uncle Pete. It's against everything we littles believe. Making friends with a cat is like making friends with a rattlesnake. Tom is saying it's not the same thing, said Mr. Little. Cats are friendly to men. Rattlesnakes are not. None of the littles spoke. Now we may be little, said Mr. Little, but we are men. Of course we are, said Uncle Pete. He looked sideways at his tail. We've got animals. Then why can't we have a cat around the house just like other people? Of all the silly ideas, said Uncle Pete. Oh dear, said Miss Little. It sounds all right, but I don't know. Why, it's a wonderful idea, said Granny Little. It's so simple. Simple-minded, said Uncle Pete. Why didn't someone think of it before, said Granny Little. Because it's a cuckoo idea, that's why, said Uncle Pete. Now see here, Peter Little, said Granny Little. Mind your manners. She stood up. Her ball of knitting yarn fell far from her lap. It rolled between Mr. Little's feet. I've lived a few more days than you have, and I know a few more things than you do, too. Mr. Little picked up the ball of yarn. He tossed it gently in the air a few times. We could start taming the cat by giving her a present. Show her we mean to be friendly. Give her something to play with, said Tom. How about that ball of yarn your father is fiddling with, said Granny Little. Don't cats like to play with things like that? As a matter of fact, Granny, they do, said Mr. Little. Will that make her friendly, said Miss Little. It might help, said Mr. Little. We could roll a ball of yarn at the cat and see what happens. All we have to do is make sure we have room to get out of the way if she doesn't get the idea. I'm against it, said Uncle Pete. Too dangerous. Cats are cats. You can't change 'em. There's a large ball of yarn in Miss Big's sewing basket, said Lucy. I lifted it once. It's lighter than anything. Let's get it, said Mr. Little. I think it's worth trying. He looked at Uncle Pete. That is, if no one else has any better ideas. Count me out, said Uncle Pete. I'll stay here and sharpen my sword. And here, let me see. There we go. Here's Uncle Pete sharpening his sword. And on number 11, we got our cat friend here. Last chapter. They found the cat in the cellar. She was sleeping near the stairs. Mr. and Miss Little and the children stood by the trapdoor under the stairs. They all held on to the end of the yarn. Mr. Little rolled the yarn towards the cat. The cat opened one eye as the yarn went past her nose. Her paw shot out. She batted the ball of yarn. The yarn rolled to a stop in front of the trapdoor. Oh, dear, whispered Miss Little. Will we be able to get through the trapdoor if we have to? Don't move, whispered Mr. Little. The cat jumped up to run after the yarn. When she saw the Littles, she stopped. She went into a crouch. Her eyes were hard and her tail began twitching. The cat was getting set to attack. Suddenly, Tom walked a few steps towards the cat. He held out his hand. Nice kitty, he said in a soft voice. Come here, kitty, kitty. Tom, psst, Tom, Mr. Little hissed. Come back, don't be foolish. Here, kitty, kitty, said Tom again. The cat's tail stopped twitching. She cocked her head and looked at Tom. Here, kitty, 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 Tom went on. Come here, girl. Meow, said the cat. Her eyes softened. Amazing, said Mr. Little under his breath. Tom took a few more steps. Nice, kitty, he said over and over again. Then the Littles heard a strange noise coming from the cat. A deep, soft, pleasant humming. The cat was purring. Now Tom was standing next to the cat. He reached up and scratched her gently under the chin. The cat closed her eyes slowly and purred louder. Tom kept talking to her all the while. It was the talking that did it, said Mr. Little later. The way I figure, the cat didn't know we were people until Tom started talking to her. I guess cats like people to talk to them. When the Newcombs left to return to the city, the cat didn't go with them. They thought she had wandered away and got lost. She hadn't. The cat had grown so fond of the Littles, she didn't want to leave. For one thing, Tom had taken to riding on the cat's back. The two became great friends. They went everywhere together. The day the Newcombs left, the cat found a hiding place and stayed out of sight. Mr. Newcomb looked all over the house. He never found her. It's just as well, said Miss Newcomb. She wouldn't have much fun in the city. If she shows up, George Big will take care of her, said Mr. Newcomb. The Big family came back from their vacation to find the cat sleeping next to the cellar stairs. The cat must have sneaked in somehow, said Mr. Big. We'll have to get rid of it. Tom Little had other ideas. Not if I can help it, he said. Tom knew he would be able to think of something to make Mr. Big change his mind, but that is probably another story. So that is the rest of The Littles book. I hope you enjoyed it, and I also hope you take a test. All right, guys, thank you for listening. Bye.